This module will provide an introduction to the tools and processes for automating and performing large-scale deployments. Learning objectives. After completing this module, you will be able to describe the different methods of automated desktop deployments, describe common tools used to perform automated steps, describe how to leverage virtualization in Windows Client, configure a Hyper-V virtual machine. Introduction. While a manual installation might be suitable for a small organization with a few devices to support, this quickly becomes tedious with many devices and is challenging to maintain. Fortunately, Windows supports several methods of automating the deployment process and managing many devices at a scale. There are also various tools for performing these tasks. This module will introduce the tools and processes for automating and doing large-scale deployments. Examine deployment options for Windows Client. When deploying Windows 10 or 11 in an organization, using Windows Media to run setup.exe doesn't scale. Depending on the existing infrastructure and desired future state, you can use several tools and methods for deploying Windows at scale. Modern, dynamic, and traditional is three methods that you can use. Modern. Modern refers to the recommended method of deploying Windows clients. There are two modern deployment methods. What's notable about these methods is that upgrades, migrations, and new deployments can usually occur without the need to reinstall the OS or reimage the device. These methods include Windows Autopilot. Reconfigure a Windows 10 or 11 device, effectively achieving a customized new install with apps and settings already configured. In-place upgrade. Use Windows Setup to update your OS and migrate apps and settings. These methods are supported with existing tools, such as the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, MDT, and Configuration Manager. Dynamic. Like modern, these methods also achieve specific deployment scenarios that historically required a reinstallation of Windows that is no longer necessary. Dynamic deployment methods enable you to configure applications and settings for specific use cases. Some examples are subscription activation. Switch from Windows Pro to Enterprise when a subscribed user logs in. Organizations upgrading from Pro to Enterprise can instantly step up without reinstalling Windows. Microsoft Entra ID and Mobile Device Management, MDM. You can automatically join a device to Microsoft Entra ID and enroll it in your management solution with no additional user interaction. Provisioning packages. Use the Windows Imaging and Configuration Designer tool to create provisioning packages, including the collection of apps and settings customized for your deployment. It then applies these packages to devices. Traditional. Sometimes you can't achieve deployment through modern or dynamic methods. An organization's existing infrastructure or configuration requirements may require deploying operating system images. Imaging typically addresses one of the following scenarios. Bare metal. Deploy to a new device with no operating system or need to wipe the existing OS and deploy with a fresh image. Refresh. Also called wipe and load, redeploy a device by saving the user state, wiping the disk, then restoring the user state. Replace. Replace an existing device with a new one by moving the user state from the old device to a new one. Essentially, the same as a bare metal with considerations for existing user data. Explore imaging and autopilot. When deploying an operating system in any organization with over 100 computers, manual deployment of operating systems becomes impractical. Organizations employ methods such as imaging and autopilot to automate and streamline this process. What is imaging? Imaging is creating a snapshot of a reference computer with the desired OS, configurations, and apps pre-installed, and then deploying that snapshot to multiple computers. It copies the reference computer configuration to the target computer when deploying an image. This method has been the preferred used in medium and large organizations for years. Benefits of imaging. Imaging eliminates the manual process of installing the OS and configuring the device and included apps on each target device. Imaging ensures devices have a consistent configuration. It reduces the chance of human error during the deployment and helps ensure devices are compliant and secure. Imaging, along with a management tool such as MDT or Configuration Manager, can automate the deployment process, with little to no action needed by IT or the end user once they plug in the device. Disadvantages of imaging. Creating and managing images takes effort. Scenarios such as different requirements within the organization, updates to apps and the operating system and hardware architecture can contribute to the number of images needed. More images increase the overhead required to maintain the images. Creating and deploying images is more complex and requires advanced tools to manage the process than manual deployment. Deploying images can consume considerable bandwidth during the process, and extra considerations are necessary when target clients have limited bandwidth and connectivity. Autopilot. Windows 10 was the first to introduce autopilot. The concept behind autopilot was to reduce the need to re-image machines. Typically, new devices come pre-installed with Windows on them by the hardware vendor, with the vendor's preferred configuration. Autopilot reconfigures the device to a clean Windows 10 or 11 install, providing an out-of-box experience while applying the organization's desired configuration and applications. Configuring a device using Autopilot is typically easier than creating and managing images. Besides deployments, Autopilot can also help with refreshing and troubleshooting scenarios. Support staff dealing with a troublesome device will frequently opt to wipe and re-image the device. Autopilot Reset enables a similar result, reverting to a clean install of Windows 10 or 11 with configurations applied and applications reinstalled. Customers can also use Endpoint Configuration Manager version 1806 or later to convert existing Windows 8.1 devices to Windows 10 or 11 using Windows Autopilot.